All right, hey everybody, Justin here. Um, and this is episode 3 of my All About Me series. I haven't done one of these episodes in a while, probably since the spring, but I've had a very busy schedule over the past few months. But now I can sit down and I've been wanting to continue this series, for a while, for at least like 2 more episodes. So this one and then another one, and then maybe a third. So like a total of 5 or 6. But the idea is for um, you guys and gals, the YouTube community, to get to know more about me. Um, Outside of what I do as far as the music stuff goes, whether it's performing, recording, producing, doing the gear reviews, things like that. Um, so episode 1, I kind of covered the basics of my life and you know my autism spectrum disorder and things like that. Episode 2, I covered the music stuff, which is things that I enjoy musically, like my favorite bands, my favorite albums. This one, I wanted to talk about things outside of the music world that I enjoy. So I think I'll start with the very first one. Um, I think if anyone were to ask me, what do you like to do other than music? Um, I'd have to say exercise. And this is not only a physical thing for me, but it's a mental thing. I find it very therapeutic. I know a lot of people find it a bit of a chore to have to go to the gym and work out, for 30 minutes or 45 minutes. But at least for me, and I know quite a few other people, I find it very therapeutic. Um, I find being able to focus on, the movement that I'm doing, whether I'm running outside or whether I'm on the total gym that you see back here, that I've had for probably about a year and a half, that I absolutely love for, strength training and things. Um, but I would say, if you were to ask me as a 10-year-old or as a 9-year-old, um, I would think that the next thing that would come to mind that I like doing is video games or building with Lego. Now, while those are on the list, and I'll talk about those in a minute, exercise would be like the furthest thing. I was never very good at gym class in school. Matter of fact, I didn't take gym in 7th through 12th because the idea of having to change in a locker room in front of a bunch of people, that was never going to happen. Like, you couldn't pay me enough money to step in a locker room with other kids, especially when I was bullied a lot in high school. But nowadays, I absolutely love exercising. Um, I don't think I really discovered my love for it. I tried a couple of things in high school. Like, I tried weight training, light, obviously. I'm not into getting big or, bulking up or anything. I just prefer strength training, preferably like lighter weights with more reps. But as long as I can comfortably lift my Montage M8X, which is about 61 pounds, then I know I'm doing okay. Um, Especially if it's in the flight case I just got for it, which is adds about maybe 25 or 30 pounds. But if I can move that, then I'm good. Um, but I would say, in regards to exercise, my favorite kind is cardio, um, especially if I can go longer than a half an hour, which I can, because I just zone out. Um, Especially if I'm running outside and doing like a 3 miler or a 5 miler, whatever the case might be. Um, I like going like early in the morning, like 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, where there's like little to no traffic. Sometimes in the evenings, where it's not as hot out, but again, there's no traffic and it's a little bit quieter. And once I can get into a zone, which maybe takes between 5 or 10 minutes, um, once I get into that zone, my mind just wanders, and I just let it wander, and I just keep going. It's very, like I said, it's not only a physical, plus for me, but it's a big mental thing. Um, And then when it comes to other things, I used to really be big into biking. Um, that is until like 2 years ago when I had like the last anxiety attack I would ever have on a bicycle. It was just too much traffic. Um, Especially in the past like few years, the traffic here around South Berwick has gotten worse and worse and worse to where I live now, I can't get out of here without hitting a main road and hitting a ton of traffic. So I ended up, biting the bullet and selling my bike a couple years ago. After I move in, maybe I think it's like 6, 7 weeks that I'm going to be moving to Newport, Vermont, and I'm going to be like on the pretty much the outside of the town where it should be pretty quiet. I'll kind of see what the traffic is like, and then I might consider getting a bike again. I do miss it because, again, it's another opportunity for me to zone out mentally, just let my mind wander, and just like, you know, release anything that's been going in my head forever. Yeah, so exercise is a good release for me mentally. And then strength training, like I said, I've got this guy behind me, the Total Gym. Um, Yes, it's the machine that Chuck Norris endorses. Actually, if I was going to do a Chuck Norris joke, I would say, no, the Total Gym endorsed Chuck Norris. It's the other way around. But I like it because there's so many things I can do on it. There's about 80 plus different moves, and I haven't tried them all yet. I've just gotten into a routine where I've got like the few that I really like doing, and I can get a good workout in about 15 minutes. About a half an hour less than what I would do if I were to step into like a Planet Fitness or a gym, anywhere else. And I've done that. I've done the gym thing. Just too many people. But that's for another episode. Things that make me go meh or mm-mm. Yeah, that's another episode. But yeah, so exercise is a big one for me. So moving on. In addition to exercise, I do like games. I love board games. Maybe in one of these episodes, I'll show off my board game collection. It's not very big. I'd say maybe I've got about 2 or 3 shelves worth of stuff that I've found and stuff that I enjoy, playing with other people. But yeah, I love the classics. Like I'm a Monopoly fan, and I know a lot of people love it. A lot of people hate it because it's such a long game. But again, when we get to the episode where I show off my board game collection, I'll give you a couple of secrets to having a good Monopoly game. I will say the more that you stick to the original rules, the better it is. I also enjoy jigsaw puzzles. That's another big one for me. Again, it cleanses my mind, gives my mind something to focus on, rather than the stuff that makes me really anxious. And again, all that crap is for another episode. mm. But I mean, I've been doing jigsaw puzzles since I was 5, maybe even earlier than that. And I think I inherited the gene from my mom. And my mom is really, really good at putting puzzles together, and she really likes them too. But yeah, I love jigsaw puzzles. I also like building with. Let me see. I also like building with these guys here. I'm a big Lego fan. I've been into Legos since I was, I think 5 or 6. My stepdad was really good at doing mock houses, my own creation houses, and I kind of fell into that trap myself, where I've done like 2-story houses, 3-story houses, but I never follow any models or any pre-planned things. It's not the most like elaborate thing as far as architecture goes, but again, it's a way for me to decompress my mind when I'm just building stuff out of Legos. But yeah, I love doing Lego houses. So I probably got maybe about 90 to 100 pounds of Lego, and I mean Lego branded stuff. I don't particularly enjoy any of the third-party brands, such as there's one out of Canada called Mega Bloks, and I would say out of these kind of building toys, Lego would be number one, Mega Bloks would be number two, and there were a few others along the line in like the 80s and 90s. The quality was okay, but I find Lego brand uh, attaches together very firmly and very easily. And sometimes it's a good thing, sometimes that's a not so good thing. But I will say the key to working with Legos is to make sure you have one of these brick separator. And there's many videos on YouTube on how to use one, but it's definitely saved me a bunch of fingernails and trying to get stuff apart. This little tool makes it especially easy to pry apart. To pry apart Legos, especially if they're like this thin and you can't really get a grip on them. These kind of plate style pieces. Yeah, I would say the brick separator is really, really handy to have. All right, so why don't we talk video games? I'm into video games, not as much as I used to be, like in high school, where I would play for hours on end. Sometimes I would basically try to beat a game in like one sitting, and not even talking about a short game. A game like Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door, which is the second Paper Mario game. I had it for GameCube, and now I wish I'd have kept it because it's worth it's worth quite a bit of money now to get an original copy of it. I would say that took me probably about a week to beat because of my schedule. And we're talking like 2005, 2006. But as far as like the types of video games that I like, I'm not a first-person shooter guy. I've never been very good at them. I've played the original Wolfenstein 3D, and I've played Doom, the original ones. I've just kind of fallen out over the years. I don't really get much enjoyment out of them anymore. I'm a big fan of puzzle games, but I'm a bigger fan of retro gaming. I would say as far as modern puzzle games, there's really only two that I'm a big fan of, and at some point I really would like to go back and play them, but I'm one of those where I've got to play them in one sitting. And that would be the two Portal games, Portal 1 and Portal 2. Love those games. But anyway, as far as retro games, and we'll talk about some more puzzle games in a minute, but I could show you right where it all started for me. I was 6 years old, and I got my first Nintendo Entertainment System, or the NES, and this was the first game I ever learned how to play. Of course, my copy was a bundle with Super Mario Brothers and Duck Hunt. Now, unless you have a CRT TV nowadays, Duck Hunt's going to be impossible because it uses the NES Zapper, the light gun. And the only way for it to work is on an old CRT style TV. But yeah, this was it for me. I still love Super Mario Brothers. It's a classic. But yeah, this is one of the original. This is an original copy. This is, like I said, this is the single version. I do have probably 4 copies of the 2-in-1 that came with, I think it was the action set and then a couple of different sets. So it was a pack-in title with, like I said, Super Mario Brothers and Duck Hunt. But I've got, I got another copy of a single game here. But yeah, this is where it started for me when I was 6. Now, for a while, I lived with my dad's side of the family up until I was maybe turned 7. My grandfather had gotten an NES for him and the kids, and he was quite good at Super Mario Brothers, and I was surprised. But I remember him being a fan of Super Mario Brothers, and maybe a couple other games. I think he had Silent Service, which is like a submarine simulator. He had, I Adventures of Tom Sawyer. He had Mickey Mouse Capade, and I played all of those. I was never very good at any of them. Maybe Mickey Mouse Capade, but again, I haven't played that title, even though I have it. But I remember him bringing this home, Super Mario Brothers 2, which is a completely different, game, and obviously for those in the know, this is the U.S. version of Super Mario 2. The Japanese version was basically an extension of this, but much, much more challenging and more difficult. Like I couldn't even get through that particular title. But that particular game was deemed too difficult for the U.S. market by Nintendo of America, so they took another Japanese game called Doki Doki Panic, and they added in some Mario sprites and basically rebranded it as Super Mario Bros. 2. I do like this game a lot, especially if you're looking for maybe a little different experience, but you still have the platforming, goodness of, the original Super Mario Brothers. And then along came this, and for a while, this was all my family played. My stepdad, my cousins, myself. There's a lot to Super Mario Brothers 3. I would say out of the three, that's probably my favorite one. So much so that I found a, let me see, is this, yeah. Found a complete in-box original copy for not a lot of money a few years ago, and I saw it and I saw the price. Oh, $30. I gotta have it. I got a third copy of it somewhere. So I love the Super Mario series. What else do I like? I'll talk about some of the puzzle games that I like for the NES, but let's get into some Legend of Zelda and what a lot of people consider the black sheep of the series, Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link. This one I actually saw first. My grandfather had it, and it was very, very deep. I don't think he ever got very far in it because it's such a challenging game. But yeah, I love both of these. This is the class. I think they're both classics, and I think this one's getting more love, today. Because of the fact that it's slightly different than this, and because it's got some RPG. It can get a little frustrating at times, but if you know what you're doing with some of the enemies, it's not that difficult. I mean, it's not a forgiving game. Don't get, let's get that straight. But I think once you've gotten your head around it and get used to, the way enemies attack and, the way you can fight them off, it's a very good game. I like it. And I love the soundtrack to both of those, too. The soundtrack to Zelda 2 is really, really... I love it. All right. Actually, you know what? Before I get into the puzzle games, I'll show you one more... I'll show you one more game that I find a bit underrated, but it's still a very good action game with some RPG elements. There's an experience point system, but for Xanadu. So this has got really good graphics for the NES. The graphics in this game really help tell the story. Also has a great soundtrack. Again, some of the enemies might be a little bit challenging and cumbersome to get around, and the jumping mechanic, the running and jumping mechanic, can get challenging. It's been a while since I've played it. I think I've only beat it once, but I've played it many times. It's a great game. Really underrated. All right, now we can get into meat and potatoes of my collection. Like I said, I love puzzle games for the NES. Excuse me for a minute. Very hard to see, but yeah, love it. Tetris for the NES. Now, for those that know what Tetris is, it's absolute classic of a game. It didn't start out on the NES. It started out as a PC game, I believe. Um, it was done by a Russian whose name I cannot pronounce because I don't speak Russian. Um, and then I do remember this version, but I also remember there was another version on the NES by a company called Tengen, which was basically an offshoot of Atari, and it was illegally produced. Um, and I remember doing the research on the game. It was a two-player version of Tetris, and I think Nintendo already were working on getting the rights to the game, and so Tengen releases this really nice two-player version that I wish I had a copy of, but it's very expensive to get because I remember when Tengen lost the lawsuit. A lot of those games were pulled off the shelf and recalled and possibly either buried or destroyed. I don't remember the actual story behind it, but I remember having a copy of that version, and that was a fun game too, especially if you wanted to play two player. But as far as the NES version, this is the version that everybody knows, and it's an absolute classic. In addition to Tetris, I also have Tetris 2. So if you're not familiar with Tetris 2, and you are familiar with Dr. Mario, another one of my favorites, I need to play this one again. Actually, I was playing this last week. These two games play pretty similar to each other. Where Tetris 2, Dr. Mario has viruses on in the playfield that you have to get rid of, and you do that by lining up four in a row of the same color, and there's three colors, there's red, yellow, and blue. And if one of those, or two of those, or even three of those are the viruses, that's how you get rid of them. But you can get four or more in a row. With Tetris 2, you have blocks in the playing field that you have to get rid of using tetrominoes and some different variations of them. But with this, you line up three in a row, and if one of those three or more of those three are the blocks you have to get rid of, then they disappear. So those two play pretty much the same way. I've been on a Tetris 2 kick for, I would say, the last few days. Such a good game. There's another, the original Tetris. I think I showed that. Let's see what else I have. How about we dip back into the Mario Land for Yoshi and Yoshi's Cookie. I do have the where is it? It's sitting here somewhere. Here it is. I do have the Super Nintendo version. There we go. There we go. So I have the NES version and the Super NES version of Yoshi's Cookie. Those are very good puzzle games. And I remember playing this for the first time. Rather interesting game. If you haven't seen this, definitely check out some YouTube play of it. So I got those. What else? So this is a game by American Video Entertainment called Tiles of Fate. This is kind of a Mahjong style game where you have to match two tiles. And the way you match them is they either have to be next to each other or they have to be two turns, two corners away. But it's kind of a variation on Mahjong, but it's quite fun and it can get very, very challenging. This is a third-party game. It was not licensed for the NES. But if you can find it and you like puzzle games, if you like Mahjong, definitely check that one out. Here we go. I'd been looking for this one forever. I found it in, I think, 2018, 2019, Maniac Mansion. It started out as a PC game, and then when it was ported over to NES, the developers had to censor some stuff and change some stuff in the game to meet Nintendo quality standards, to make it a more, I'd say on the NES it's more of a, I would say, early early teen rated game. I would rate it maybe PG. Um, so there's that. Here's another classic, Adventures of Lolo. There is a second and a third sequel that I cannot find. Those can get very, very pricey. Um, so this is kind of birthed out of the Kirby world. Another fun, challenging puzzle game. And I think I've beaten it once, twice. Here's Puzznik. This one's an interesting one. This has two different modes, Puzznik and Gravnik. Gravnik, you basically have to match up tiles, and you've only got a certain number of moves to do that. And I believe it's gravity-based. With Puzznik, you have to match two tiles at once, and there's different layouts and different ways that you can do that. So that's that's an engaging game. Oh, here we go. Bugs Bunny Crazy Castle. So this is like an action slash puzzle game because you've got to run around and collect as many carrots, collect all the carrots in a level, and then you basically advance to the next level. This is on a password system, so there's like a 4-letter password that you have to write down. That was pretty big in the world of Nintendo. But yeah, that's a fun game. So as far as what systems I own, I do have an NES original controller. Actually, I've got like 4 or 5 controllers. Some of the buttons didn't work, so I basically cleaned out like 3 of them. Cleaned out the rubber domes underneath these and then reset the whole controller. So this controller actually feels quite nice. Easy to play. And I've actually got 2 NESs. One of them is stock. The other one has been modded. And if you want to know what mod I did to it, look up the 10 NES mod for the NES, which basically means... how do I say this? Alright. One of the main problems you can get with an NES is what I call the blinking light of death, which basically means the console will blink on and off repeatedly if a game doesn't work or if the 10 NES chip doesn't read the game. So what I did was I cut one of the pins, and if you find and research the mod on YouTube, it'll tell you what pin on the 10 NES chip to cut. And it basically gets rid of the blinking light, and it makes it easier to troubleshoot games. The other notorious thing is a lot of times games won't work. And back in the day, the solution was supposedly to blow into the end of the cartridge to get the dust out of the cartridge. The problem is it's not the cartridge for the most part, because if you keep these clean and you keep the 72 pin connector clean, and as long as that 72 pin connector is making a good connection with the cartridge, then you're fine. I haven't really had many problems with this one other than maybe having to seat the cartridge a couple of times, but you never ever want to blow into the game because the pins inside this can get corroded, and cleaning them can get very, very touchy. I just use rubbing alcohol and a Q-tip. Nintendo used to tell you don't use alcohol, don't use any kind of stuff to clean it, and you can read that on the back of these cartridges, because they want to make money off of you by selling the cleaning kit, which honestly, in my opinion, doesn't really work. But if you just take a Q-tip and some rubbing alcohol, get in there and clean those contacts good, then you're good to go. I went a step further and got a pair of security bits for my screwdriver. So these screws are security bits, and they're not readily available, but go onto eBay and look for Nintendo security cartridge bits. And what I'll do is I'll open the cartridge up, and I can really get into the onto those connectors. What I also do, and what's commonly advised against, is if there's a lot of corrosion on here, and that is to take a Mr. Clean Magic Eraser and just rub it, onto the and rub it and get rid of the corrosion that way. It's not advised, but I've found if you just go very, very gently, like as gentle as you can possibly go with it, then you should be good to go. I've done that with a few. I've had to do that with my Super Mario Brothers 2 cartridge, and you know what? It works fine. But the big thing that can go wrong is the 72-pin connector. Now, when this came out, it was what Nintendo called a zero insertion force. So instead of doing a top-down cartridge, honestly, which made a little more sense, you inserted it like this, and you press down, and when you press down, when you press the cartridge down into the console, and you hear it click into place, that's when the pins come into contact with, with the connector on the front of the game. What can happen is those pins can bend out of form. And the way that you can fix that is open up the console, and there's two things you can do. You can get a replacement 72-pin connector. Those are easily available on eBay. Or you can just manually and very carefully bend the pins back into place, and then your game should work fine. But like I said, I have two NESs. One of them's stock. One of them has been modded. I've also got a Super Nintendo Entertainment System. And what do I've got for games other than Yoshi's Cookie? I've got a couple other classics here. I've got the remake of Tetris and Dr. Mario, updated graphics, and there's a two-player mode, versus mode, and one of the modes is called Mixed Match, which is basically a two-player battle, and you play a round of Tetris, a round of Dr. Mario, and then another round of Tetris. It's a really good remake. I like it quite a bit. And then I've got because I'm such a big Mario fan, I've got Super Mario All-Stars. So this is remakes of Super Mario Brothers 1, 2, and 3, and then it also adds the Lost Levels, which is the Japanese Super Mario Brothers 2. And then because I've got a Super NES, I have to have Super Mario World. Actually, I need to replace this cartridge because it's a little loose in here, but I'm pretty sure I'll be able to find another copy of that at some point. I've also got... What's the other puzzle game I have? I think I have Tetris Attack. I had a copy of Tetris 2 for the Super NES. I have no idea what happened with it. I've also got a Sega Genesis Model 2. I'd like to get a Model 1, or I would like to get an RF to AV. I think it's composite. The red, yellow, and white RCA connectors. I need to get that for the my Model 2 Genesis in order to get it hooked up. But I've got the 3 Sonic the Hedgehog games plus Sonic and Knuckles. I do want to find a copy of Columns at some point and see what other puzzle games are available for Genesis. But that's really much it for video games for me. I'm a retro guy. I do some PC gaming, but it's more casual, kind of building slash simulation kind of games. Things like that. I've had many consoles. Matter of fact, when I moved here, I sold off a bunch that I wasn't using. I had an original Xbox. I had a 360 slim model, not the original one. I've had a couple different PS2s. I've had the original big one, and then I've had a couple of slim models. I've had a Wii U, and I've had a Switch. But I found myself really liking the retro stuff more. And that's kind of where I'm at. As far as gaming stuff. Oh, what else can I talk about? Things that I like. That's pretty much it for right now. I've talked about the board games. I've talked about, the exercise. I've talked about my jigsaw puzzles. I do have a collection of jigsaw puzzles. Like I said, maybe one of these days I'll go through my board game collection. I talked about my video games. I talked about Lego. I'm a big fan of building computers. I've had many pre-built systems like laptops and a couple of desktops, and I've always had issues with them, like not lasting over maybe 2 years before I've had to upgrade. So I finally said, you know what? And this was like late 2013, early 2014. You know what? I'm just gonna build my own. I'm gonna research how to do it. I'm gonna watch a couple of videos, and then I'll get the computer that I want. With the money that I have. And I can have a system that can grow with me. Ever since then, the only pre-built stuff I've ever bought was the MacBook Pro that I'm streaming right now on. This is the only other pre-built computer I own. So any other computer that I get, Windows-based, I'm going to build it myself. That way I know exactly what I want. I do build for other people. I've built for many friends over the years, whether it be through my church community, any other connections that I've had. I've probably built like 12 or 13 computers since like 2014, 2015. So I've built quite a few of them. And I usually tell people, like, if you can go the custom route, get somebody to build a custom computer for you. Get exactly what you want. There's no wasting money on RGB unless you really want to go that route. I find it's a more reliable system. Actually, the computer that I had previous to the one that I've had now lasted me about 8 years before I had to upgrade. Actually, really before I wanted to upgrade. It could have kept going, but I was on Windows 8.1. I wasn't ready to upgrade to 10 yet. But yeah, so I love building computers, and I will build for other people. If somebody wants one. I'm not comfortable with shipping anything yet, because they can get very expensive to ship. So yeah, building computers. There's a few other things that I like. I mean, TV shows, movies. That could be a whole nother episode in and of itself. That could probably be episode 5. But let's see. I've been going for a little while now. So those were some of the, a few of the things that I like doing. I do like going record shopping, finding a record store and just going crate digging and things like that. If I can afford to get just one thing, I'll take that. All right, so that's gonna. I can't really think of anything else right now, unless I bring it up in another future episode and title it "Oops, I Forgot About This." All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna call this an episode. So this was episode 3 of All About Me. It was fun to talk about, and I will say this is the second time I've had to try to shoot this because, well, I'll talk about that in a little bit. But people still lighting off fireworks that shouldn't be lighting off fireworks by now. But we'll talk about that maybe in another episode. I might do one of these, I don't know, in the next couple of days. But all right, so I'm going to call that an episode. Thank you all for watching, for tuning in. If you liked this or any other content on my channel, be sure to subscribe to my channel. Click the notification button, and you'll be notified anytime I go live or anytime I release a video. I don't have a set schedule because I do have a bunch of other things that I'm involved in, mainly music related, but a couple other things. If you'd like to check out any of my music, head on over to my Bandcamp page, which is right down below. I've got a couple things up there. I've got something brand new coming out maybe within the next couple of weeks. That'll be a copy of my brand new album, Walk on the Water. I do have it available on CD, and I'll have to talk about that and how to get a copy. Maybe I'll shoot another video about that. But there it is. All right, so I'm going to call this a stream. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you next time. Take care.